Hey guys, Sid here, back at you with what I believe is episode 5 or video 5. Losing track because I haven't published them yet. I'm sort of filming them in advance so I can publish them with the schedule. And yeah, if you see me wearing any branding or whatever, I'm still not sponsored or anything. It's just what I happen to be wearing on the day. Yeah, I'm enjoying having a chat to you guys when I'm on my walks. I think these first 10, 15, whatever videos, I'll just do these chats and then start publishing them, see how they go. And then I might move to some other formats where I show stuff on a computer screen or show stuff in person. But at the moment I'm just keeping it simple, low amount of effort, just film and publish basically. So today I'm going to talk a bit about sound systems and building them yourself. Not necessarily like not building the speakers yourself or any of the components, but setting it up in your house. So what are the key things to look at? Well, a few things that I've learned is sound. You know, you get acousticians and gurus, but really sound is about psychoacoustics, or how your ear perceives sound, because our ear doesn't hear sound like a microphone does when you're measuring your room or whatever. Your ear and your brain processes sound totally different. So sometimes you do unintuitive things and they work really well, and it can really mess with you. how the psychoacoustic aspect, you almost have to have a degree in brain science and psychology and everything to get to know it. And a lot of acousticians start as, you know, sound engineers or something, but then, you know, branch out into psychoacoustics because it's so important about how our ear perceives sound. Second thing, so that's something you can look into and just keep in mind every time you're tuning or setting up. Now the second thing is train your ears. You've got to know some tracks, some music, which we call like our reference material. We've heard it on a million sound systems in the car, on good quality over-ear headphones, on in-ear headphones. You know, these are like hi-fi man in-ears. And the thing about having in-ears, the bass response is so flat, so good compared to in-room, where you start getting huge modal activity happening. So you can really get that sense of the bass. And in my opinion, and lots of people's opinion, the bass is, you know, the most important part to figure out and get right. Something like 40% of our listening experience we can hear between 20 hertz and 20,000 hertz. Obviously, as we age and our ears get worn out, that drops. So, you know, if you're 40 like me, you might be at 16,000 hertz. You can't hear those really fine top squeaks. But there's very little content, musical or cinematic, that's going to be right up at that level anyway. But getting that bass being 40% of the listening experience between say 20 and 80 hertz, I'm not 100% sure on those numbers, but it's somewhere around there, is really important. And it's also a massive show factor, you know, when you got mates over, just having that tight, clean bass, something that they've never heard before apart from at, you know, a massive music festival or in a cinema. You know, gives you brownie points, so that's always fun, showing off. So yeah, training your ear on certain songs, what the bass should sound like. If you know, when you're on headphones, you've got like a 2-channel, and you can get a phantom image of where the voices are coming from. And when you're 2-channel with speakers, it's where that phantom image is as well. So how clear that voice is coming from that location. That's to do with the time alignment of the speakers, that they're all perfectly aligned, and then you can start picking the sounds and there's no muddiness. You can really individually pick where that cymbal is coming from, or that voice, or that trumpet, whatever it may be. So yeah, bass is really important. Next, I would say, is the room that you're in for a sound system. The worst case is like a really small square room with equal dimensions throughout. So the width, the depth and the height are all equal. You're going to get some modal activity that would be almost impossible to get rid of, no matter where you place your subwoofers. So having a room where one of those dimensions is different, so your ceiling height is less than your wall-to-wall distances, that's one step along the way. Then 2 that are different, so your height, your depth and your width, they're all different, and they're not different by numbers divisible by each other. So you're not like, there's modes like 4th order modes, 3rd order. So if you go, your room is twice as long as it's wide, that same wavelength will fit into the room twice and once. So that same wavelength is going to have cancellations. Obviously you can move your subs around to get rid of that a bit, but it's not ideal. So having slightly different dimensions, basically we're getting down to the more organic the shape, so the more angles, the more variations, deviations, different textures, the better your room is going to perform. Now another one about in a room is, especially for if you like to look at a lot of cinematic content, is a false floor. So you're not on a concrete floor, because you want that visceral feel of the bass. You want your chair to shake or vibrate a little bit. You want to feel that there's a rumble, you know. It becomes a tactile experience, and that really generates a lot of wow factor. So at a cinema, you'll feel the seat move on those high impact scenes, and you want that at home. So if you're designing a dedicated room, and it's got a concrete floor which will not move, like it's basically an immovable object. I mean, nothing's immovable, but you know what I mean. And you put a floating floor above it, so some joists and a new timber floor, and then put your couch on that, and that's going to give you a far better result for that tactile experience. Now, I guess, sorry about the light, I guess you're going to want to figure out what the purpose of your sound system is going to be. So do you have a TV or a projector, and you're going to be watching a lot of cinematic content? You know, you want to get right down to the 20 hertz, or is it really a 2-channel dedicated system where, you know, most musical content isn't going to get much below 40 hertz for, even the deeper stuff. I mean, there is stuff out there that goes right down for sure, but I can guarantee you 90% is not going to go that low. So then you're looking at bass management. So what I did is I have my listening and my cinematic all in the one, because I can't afford to do both. So the harder one to achieve is getting down to the cinematic low frequency effects level. So it's really based around that cinematic, getting down to 20 hertz. Now you're going to want to bass manage that, because your normal speakers and your AVR or your amplifier that's running your surround sound or your 2-channel system and the speakers themselves, they're going to be stressed a fair bit trying to reach those low frequencies, and you're going to get muddying, clipping of the amp, clipping of the speakers, all sorts of things happening. You can reduce that stress by offloading some of that to dedicated low frequency amplifiers, which are generally in your sub, or you have a dedicated amp for your subs if they're not active subs, they're passive subs. And then that frees up a whole bunch of dynamic range, a whole bunch of power for your main speakers. So I highly recommend doing that, but with that comes, the other thing it does is it below 80 hertz, our ear can't really pick where the sound is coming from. So that means you can put the sub wherever you want in the room, wherever it's best suited for generating bass sound at the reference listening position, like the middle seat where you reference all your measurements off of, or your main listening position. You can place it there and tune it, so you've got flexibility with where the subs go. Subs are big, bulky, ugly looking things generally, not like nice tower speakers that you could put either side of the TV as a center feature piece or hide them better in wall because they're slim aligned. Subs, it's much harder to do all of that with. So first you get the power, then you get flexibility, and you get better performance in room, but you have the problem of time aligning it with all your speakers, setting delays, all of that. But most AVRs now come with pretty good self-tuning stuff. So I've got a Marantz, same for the Denon, and a lot of them. It comes with a mic, an Odyssey. You can upgrade that Odyssey subscription, I think it's like $200, and then you can really get into the nitty gritty, but it basically runs itself. It tells you where to put, and then it will do the bass management. I still go in and check, like, has a delay been set to that sub, or did something go wrong in the measurement? Because usually you'll see like 50 milliseconds. One of my subs is really far away from the listening position, and every other speaker is set, at like 40 to 50 milliseconds delay, because that one sub is so far back. So the sound obviously takes a while to hit the main position, but all the other ones that are closer then hit that position anyway. You can tune your room pretty cost effectively. It comes with most amps. Now, when I say most, I'm talking about sound systems. I had a guy at a shop tell me what's the sweet spot for sound systems, because it can go crazy in price chasing perfection. And he said 5 figures. 5 figures is the sweet spot, which is still a huge range, right? It's $90,000 in range, but between 10,000 and 100,000 is your sweet spot. So you can get a second-hand Denon receiver with a microphone, pretty cheap, and then buy the speakers, some ceiling ones, all the surround ones, pretty cheap as well, and get it all done for 10 grand for sure. So that's the ballpark that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about your JBL, go to the a big convenience store and get your JBL 3.1 system or whatever it is, that sort of thing. Play and forget. We're getting into a bit more the tuning, audiophile grade stuff. So yeah, you can play with locations, play with measurements, look at the measurements, listen to the sound, see what you like, and go from there. Now, third most important thing is buy more subs. Having heaps of subs. So a lot of receivers these days, they come with 1, 2, 3, 4 sub outs as standard. Try get one with 4 sub outs, LFE channels, and that can be like, they're separate, they're not like bridged or anything, so that they can be tuned separately, so that you can have up to 4 subs. Now, 1 sub is okay, but you're going to get heaps of that modal activity. And to explain modal activity a bit more, wavelengths are, you know, down in the, you know, 50 below hertz. They can be 5 to 10 meters long. And if a wavelength doesn't fit in your room, like the room is shorter than the length of the wave, the sound wave, all it is doing at that stage is pressurizing and depressurizing the room. A wave doesn't fit, so you're just creating like pressurizations and depressurizations in the room. There's no longer a wave, it's just like an expansion and a contraction in the room. A full wave cannot form in the room. And the more subs you have, when the bass gets to the wave lengths, like if a room is 1 wavelength, you say the wave starts at the sub and peaks in the middle of the room, and by the time it gets to the end of the room is silent again, you're going to be really loud at the listening position. Actually, it's the opposite way around. Say your listening position's in the middle of the room, where the sub is at a wall. It sends out the pressure wave. The wave starts high, and there's like a dip in the middle of the room, so you almost hear no bass at the listening position. That's for 1 wave, but imagine like 4 waves fit in the room. There'll be spots where there's a dip in the bass response because there's the dip of the wave. So you can play with your listening position, moving couches or whatever backwards and forwards for certain frequencies. You can play with moving the subs around so that they're, you know, slightly in from corners or slightly off of walls. And that's just a lot of playing around, really. You just, and keep listening. What's going to be the best spot? Keep running measurements. So there's a great tool, REW, Room Equalization Wizard, I think it's called, free. You can donate to them, but I use that, and then you can just run a sweep on all your speakers or just your LFE channels and see at different positions what frequencies are falling out, where your bass curve peters off, rolls out, off, and all your in-room measurements, your decay, all of that sort of stuff, so you can start to see what is going on in your room. And then you can start to play with subwoofer placement and see which one's the best placement. So I did that before I designed the joinery in my living room. Played around with where was going to be the best subwoofer placement for seat to seat consistency. So for not just the main listening position, 1 person, that would have been the subs in the corners. It had the most SPL pressure, the best bass, everything. But as soon as I moved the mic either side of the couch, now when I'm listening, I either lie this way on the couch or that way. I don't want to be like stuck rigid in the one spot. I want to have slightly compromised sound, let's call it, but better more equal seat to seat. And then if you're all sitting around to watch a movie, everyone's getting a similar experience. You don't suddenly go, oh, that was sick, like, did you hear all that bass? And the guy next to you is like, what bass? That would just suck, right? You want to be in the experience together. So for the best seat to seat consistency, I found that having them in 1/4 measurements from the side, 1/4 measurement from the other side, was the best for seat to seat consistency with just the 2 front subs. And my couch is actually slightly to the side as well, my TV being the side, so it doesn't look centralized in the room at all, but it had the best results. So playing around with all of that is, before you set it in place, is super important. Try get the room built, get some subs in there. Hopefully the subs you're actually going to use, well, highly recommended, because every sub has SBIR effects, you know, like speaker room interference, I think it is. So yeah, when the wave bounces back and everything gets pretty complex. Yeah, so, and then when you measure it all, there's a great document called CEDIA RP22. Oh man, read that thing back, front to back. It just shows you like what your reference levels should be, you know, what your seats to seat consistency should be, like at different levels. I think they have like 5 levels, so level 1 being the lowest, and then level 2, 3, 4, 5. You know, so cinemas and high quality listening rooms, or, you know, dedicated home theaters, you'd want to be chasing, you know, level 5, and then it's got speaker placements to get to level 5 to give you that sort of immersion, so on and so forth. Great document to read, get your head around before you start setting up, and then you kind of know what your targets are, you know, what your peak SPL should be, you know, for that dynamic range in those films. Is your peak SPL, you know, 118 decibels is where, like for CEDIA level 5, I think it's 118 decibels from like 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz, so quite difficult to achieve. And then that at all seat, like at quite a wide range of seating positions as well. So that's why reducing that modal activity to hit that seat to seat consistency is pretty important. So yeah, multiple subs, really, really important. I would go as far as to say that your AVR, your receiver or your amp package, what have I spent? Yeah, similar, like spend as much on subs as your AVR, and as much on your speakers as those as well. So if you're going to say spend 10 grand on your AVR, which has the amp and everything in it, then I would try to spend 10 grand on subs, and then 10 grand for the rest of the speakers. Now, because you can always put more speakers in, and you can always put more subs in, but, and yeah, 10 grand for subs compared to speakers is probably, you know, a bit overweight, but I'm just trying to get a point across where that's, you know, how you might balance it to prioritize everything correctly. Yeah, and then play some of your music through it, and you will, like, there's some music I love to listen, like some songs I love on these headphones, but I will always prefer listening to my songs on the in-room sound system, just because you can feel it. Like, you can turn it up, and you can turn it up in your headphones to the same SPL, and it has a smoother technically bass response, but it just sounds so much warmer, so much better on the sound system, and you can feel it, like the bass, it just becomes a full experience. Whereas when it's in your ears or over your ears. It's super, yeah, it's like condensed in a way. It doesn't wash over you. The sound doesn't wash over you as much. Same as, I would say, like same as watching, well, not really as watching a movie on your TV compared to going to the cinema, because yeah, you're still getting the full range in your headphones. So it's great for as a reference to see what it hears like, see what it sounds like. But it's like if you watch a movie, say like Mad Max on this, or Mad Max, you know, at the same reference levels, you know, you're gonna hear the chair, like feel the chair vibrate. The sound's gonna hit you like a wave. It's a totally different experience. So while this is a lot cheaper and achieves 90% of that result, just that experience of the sound system is definitely worth it. So yeah, my floor's floating. I had to build on stumps because I'm in a flood zone, so I had that to my advantage. I have down firing subs, which gets more of that bass energy into the floor, and it just works brilliant. Like, yeah, the rumble, you feel it in the chair. And then my room is super unevenly shaped, and while that's hard to tune, I think it worked in my benefit, because there's no similar surfaces that bounce waves like too much, and it feels really organic. And you hear all these people having troubles, and you know, they got to put bass traps in, and if I walk around the room, like I do hear places where it's a bit elevated, the bass, and just so happens that at the main listening position at the moment, with the tuning and the setup I've got, there is a bit of a dip, but I'm still meeting all reference levels, and I got a nice in-room bass curve. You know, I have 3 settings, so I tune it with Dirac and an aftermarket mic. It's called like the UMIC 1 or UMIC 2 or something. I think it's the UMIC 1. So a better quality mic, calibrated, and yeah, it just sounds great. The seat to seat consistency is good. I don't have rear surrounds. I had to put the rear surrounds up in the ceiling because it's sort of a thoroughfare from like the front door to the kitchen behind the couch, but it means my couch is off the back wall, which is great. You don't want your main listening position on any wall, because that's sort of where more modal activity happens. So yeah, I've got a bit of a dip right where I am, so if I stand up and go into the kitchen, stand at the kitchen bench, the bass is a little bit elevated there, and it sounds brilliant. Like I almost prefer going into the kitchen and listening, which is like when I'm making dinner for the kids, switch on the sound system, and that's where I listen to my music. And then I sit down on the couch and listen, you know, watch a movie, and it's still great there. I can change my like Dirac calibration. It gives you like 3 save files, and so I've got one for, you can tune like the bass curve. So yeah, I've got Dirac with bass control, which is really good. You can tune the bass curve to be, you know, up 3 decibels, depending on how you like it in-room response. But there's like the Harman curve, look it up, but 3 decibels up, 6 decibels up, and 12 decibels up, I think, are my 3 settings. Now I listen to music, and this is where psychoacoustic comes in a lot, at lower than reference level SPL. So reference level for cinema and what they design the Harman curves and everything for is like 80, 85, I think. But I'm listening at like 70, which is like safer listening levels for kids and stuff like that. So generally when we're watching a movie at 70 decibels, that's all we want to go to. Sometimes I do put it up to full reference levels or like a bit above, which is really fun. You got some mates over, and what we watched like June 2, massive rumbling, like, yeah, it sounds bloody sick. But with the kids, it's all you need, like 70. But when you're down reference levels by 10 decibels, let's say, there's some rules of thumbs that people speak of, and listen to these guys, like watch their YouTubes, they're bloody geniuses. There's a guy called Anthony Gramani and Matthew Pose. They're a couple of the guys that I, watch about this information. Sorry, I lost my train of thought a little bit there. You're gonna want to elevate the bass a little bit, because listening at lower SPLs, because of the psychoacoustics and everything, like Dolby Atmos and stuff, they have their recommendations, but they're all at reference levels, and our perception of bass and however it works changes at different reference levels. We need less bass when the overall sound is louder. Now, I don't like going much above 85. It just, like, me and my mate who works in a club all the time, we just cranked the sound system, see how far it could go, and it was just hurting our ears, and it was still the cleanest, crispest bass. He's like, you don't get this in a club. But it's just uncomfortable to listen to it when it's consistently at that crazy high sound pressure levels. So yeah, as we go down, like sometimes I'm just like in the evening when the kids are asleep, I just listen at 50 decibels of SPL, and I can monitor it on my watch. I just look at my watch. So I've got like an Apple Watch, and it's got the decibel meter right on the face, and I just check always, is it safe for the kids' ears? But yeah, in the evening, 50 decibels is plenty. And then I just go into the plus 12 setting, like a much steeper bass curve in the bass region, from like 20 hertz to 110, and then it rolls off, starts rolling off at 80, rolls off quite steeply between 80 and 150, and it flattens right out, and then it rolls off, right at the top end, 10,000 to 15,000. You roll it off a bit just to try and match the Harman curve. But as you go down, and this is what Odyssey does well, the one that a lot of receivers come with, they've got it's like adaptive EQ or something. I don't play with it too much, but you turn up and down the volume, and it's like it adjusts the bass. I believe it does this. I haven't played around with too much with Odyssey because I like the Dirac. The sound out of Dirac is what I prefer. Doesn't mean one's better than the other. I think Odyssey's really good for the price, especially. But as far as I can do it, I wasn't able to use like an aftermarket microphone, so just the cheaper microphone that was out of the box. Yeah, so I set that up a little bit for the lower listening, and then the bass sounds the same as if you're listening. Like when you turn down the volume, often you go, oh, I'm losing all the bass, I've got to turn up the volume. But that's not what needs to happen. You just need to have the bass up a little bit when you turn it down, and it's an actual like thing that happens that you should be aware of and doing, so that to your ear, yes, while the in-room response, the bass curve is much steeper, to your ear it still sounds the same, which it wigs you out. But that's where like learning a bit about it and knowing about it, so that you can adjust and go, oh, the sound system isn't broken, like why is it not putting out enough bass when the volume's really low? You can actually adjust and mitigate for those things, and then you'll always have great sounding bass, which, it being 40% of the listening experience, is really important. The rest, Dirac or Odyssey deal with pretty well, like all the frequencies above 1,000, as you go above 10,000, I wouldn't even, you know, switch on Dirac like or Odyssey. I would just say put your curtains for where the algorithm like starts taking hold forward, like from 10,000 hertz and down, and just let the room be the room at those higher frequencies. It'll sound more organic, less digital signal processing. Yeah, but yeah, do what you want, play around with it. Is like you'll end up spending hours and hours, because like running the sweeps, running the calibrations. So I like run a calibration on Room EQ Wizard, see what the room is like, then I run like my Dirac sweeps. So that takes like, you know, you have to move the mic around because I'm doing it for a wide listening position. There's, you know, extra measurements. You know, it takes 15 minutes, half an hour to set up, run everything, and then have a fast PC. Like I do the measurements on one PC, save the file, jump on my fast PC, get it to do all the optimization because I've got better processing power, goes quicker, and then over the network send it to my AVR. Now, if you're going to be spending a lot more money, you'll have things like a Trinnov processor, and you're going to be able to achieve things like, or Storm processor, which has Dirac has an even better one than bass management. I forget what it's called because I don't have it. But and then Trinnov has like their one, which is even better. Like they create, if you have a proper bass array, and this is where I'm saying, you know, like if you have the Trinnov processor, you've spent what, 20-30k Australian on the processor, and then to have the bass arrays that they want to create a planar wave, which is basically a flat wave that goes across the room, and then they have like absorbers at the back of the room, you're going to be spending 20, 30, 40k on subs as well. So I think then all your other speakers, you know, you might have what, like a 15 channels or something if you have a dedicated room like that. You know, 15 times whatever, $2,000, you're spending 30k's on speakers as well. So I think it's a good balance. Trinnov waveforming it's called, and the Dirac one's called active room treatment. So all the speakers can assist in the bass management and the decay control. So you're getting more into the realms of better decay control, because the other speakers can send out little cancellation waves, almost like the Trinnov does with the back bass array, little cancellation waves that can stop some of those reflections and what happens with the room interfering with the sound from happening. So, but I think only Storm audio processors at this stage have the active room treatment, so not available to me with my my cheapo little Marantz. And it's not cheap, like I saved up a long time to get this set up as it is. So yeah, everybody has a different budget and different priorities. I'm just sharing my story and what I've learned along the way, and what you'll pass on some of those priorities to you. So hopefully this has helped. This is a bloody long video, so who knows if it gets some views or not, but yeah, that's my story. Yeah, cheers guys, catch ya.